What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Boozor here. Thanks for stopping by. So the Eostrid Dreamsong fusion just started. We got our first look at her schedule. So we'll dive into that and see if we can navigate it as efficiently as possible. So I'm going to go through all my tips and tricks in the schedule. So let's jump right into it. Alright, so here's the fusion schedule that just got released by Plarium. If you guys haven't checked out my preview video on Eostrid and test service coverage on her, make sure you guys check the video in the description below. But to me, she seems like a very solid champion. Initially, I was kind of underwhelmed by her, but I realized how powerful having the speed up, speed down combination in her kit, even though the rest of her kit doesn't really synergize too well together, I would say. My biggest complaint is that she is kind of like a mixed bag of everything. So they try to make her an arena focused champion, but I think her main value will be in Hydra. But she seems like a good champion if you don't have anybody to immediately help you in Hydra with the increased speed, decreased speed type of champion. She's going to be a great champion to fix all your issues in that regards. Anyway, so here is the schedule. So on first look, we got 110 fragments, meaning we have 10 extra fragments that we can potentially skip. We don't really count winning tournaments as part of the equation because winning tournaments is going to be very, very difficult. And the way that Plarium has it set up nowadays is that winning tournaments is basically during really expensive events, so it's really hard to win. But with that being said, let's start off the fusion here today. All right, so on day 1, April 4th, we got Fire Knight opening with the champion training. Kind of sucks that no Dungeon Diver starts today. Dungeon Diver will start tomorrow. Fire Knight and training don't really go super well together. So you have two choices today on day 1. Use your daily energy on the training portion, or use your daily energy on the Fire Knight portion. So what I would recommend probably is day 1, focus on the champion training part. Focus your energy training, focus your energy mainly here, and then obviously do some tavern work. Yeah, so not too much on day 1. We're going to be pretty inactive. On day 2, tomorrow, there's going to be a champion chase event tomorrow. And it's going to be 2x ancients, which is actually kind of nice, I think. I'm not sure if they're following schedule anymore, but it's really hard to keep track of what Plarium is doing with the 2x events, because they're removing chases, removing summon events, inputting like heroes path and all that stuff. So it's really hard to keep track of all that, and then on top of that, they can just add or remove the 2x events whenever they please now. So for this, I was actually expecting a summon rush this week, because last week should have been chase, but they removed chase, and instead they put the chase this week, which is kind of weird, but it works out because it's also 2x ancients. I'll pull up the event that's happening for 2x ancients. All right, looks like the event is already in the news section, so you guys can have a look here. But basically, it's going to be a 2x Ancients chance with a progressive event that's happening for Nut, Kyoku, Sisia, Flametongue, Kantra, and then some pieces for, I believe Isbel is for Mikage, Andolph, Ruella. Also got Boost, Leorius, and Carillon, the Ringer from Void Shards, if you guys are interested in that. Rank and Skull Crown from Void Shards as well. So in terms of the non-voids, because that's probably what you're going to be focusing on during a 2x ancient event, we're looking at probably the best champions for this would probably be Nut. So if you don't have a Nut or Newt, you're probably going to want a boosted chance on Nut. Kyoku, probably not going to be the one that you guys are going to be boosting up on. Sisia Flametongue is also excellent. I think Sisia would be the one that a lot of people might actually want as well. She's very good for Spider, very good for Hydra. Kantra is also very good mainly for Hydra. She brings Provoke, decreased speed, block buffs, but they're all kind of conditional, requires a little bit of setup, but she's very, very good for Hydra. She brings a lot of good debuffs. And she's tanky and hard to kill and stuff like that. but most people are probably going for Newt for this event. So just something to keep in mind for your Ancient Shards tomorrow. Also applies to Sacred and Primal Shards, but most likely you guys will be spending Ancient Shards tomorrow, which is super efficient because Ancient Shards are actually worth quite a bit for Champion Chase because you can high roll your epics and high roll your legendaries if you get lucky that way. So great event for Champion Chase starting tomorrow with the 2x event. Probably with Newt or City of Flame Times. So very good event. Expect to budget about 2,500 points worth of champions. That's roughly, if you get average luck, is roughly about 50 ancients, I would say. So if you have 50 ancients, you got this in the bag, most likely. Also, you can supplement this with some Broad Mauls, Relic Keepers, Fragment summons from the past. And then it starts at the same time as Dungeon Diver, in which case you will be focusing on the Fire Knight energy into the Dungeon Divers here. You will probably have to do the champion training pretty much separate from the Fire Knight, so try to finish off your Fire Knight first, and then focus the energy afterwards into your champion training, such as campaign. Also, any tavern work like brews and stuff, it's going to go into the champion training there. Classic Arena, that's going to be either an energy sink or it's just going to be very easy, so no big deal there. When Spider starts, you will get a chance to enter the some of the energy into the Dungeon Divers. Ideally, it will probably cost you between 2,000 and 2,500 energy, depending how efficient you want to be with each of these dungeon tournaments. So if you put your whole 2,500 energy, for example, from Fire Knight into this Dungeon Diver, you're about halfway done. And then the second half will be completed with this Spider tournament, ideally. So then you won't have any wasted energy going into your Dungeon Divers. You'll probably be spending gems, perhaps, if you want to fully incorporate all the Spider tournament energy into the Dungeon Divers. I probably recommend doing that just because you're fully completing the Dungeon Divers with the 2 dungeon tournaments. Okay, so after that, we're done that. Artifact Enhancement event, expect 20 million budget. You are farming quite a bit from the Fire Knight and Spider, so you'll probably have enough silver to complete that, no problem. So going after that, we have a Dragon Tournament. It's going to line up with partial Spider, partial Dragon. Unfortunately, this is probably where you're going to be spending your energy or gems that you've saved up from, obviously the bit of downtime that we had. Because completing all of Dragon will not complete this Dungeon Divers. Typically, Dungeon Divers, you expect to spend over 5,000 energy, whereas, like I said, each one of these dungeon tournaments takes about 2,500 energy. So you're either going to put extra energy into a Dragon tournament, maybe if you want to win it for Relentless gear, or just Spider gear, or you're going to put the full energy into Dragon. So you're either going to put 5,000 energy into Spider, split that 5,000 energy so that it applies to Dungeon Divers 1 and Dungeon Divers 2, or you're going to put the full 5,000 energy into Dragon and then go into Dungeon Diver 2. Also, this will be the time for CVC, so this is CVC. So CVC will be during the Spider tournament, so you might be spending some energy here. We just had a personal reward CVC, so this might be a non-personal reward, but honestly, it's probably more likely to be personal rewards than it is non-personal rewards, so we'll see what happens. During a fusion, it gets pretty nasty, of course, if you're going to be spending tons and tons of energy. You'll get caught up with the whole CVC thing if you guys can help it. After that, you're going to be leveling up some more gear that you picked up from all these dungeons. And yeah, about 20 million again. Lots and lots of farming happening. So hopefully the silver keeps up with the artifact enhancement events. So that's another check mark. So lastly, we got this training event going with Ice Golem. That seems pretty good if you have somebody like Artak. Artak can solo like lower level dungeon Ice Golem or even the top levels of Ice Golem, but obviously very gear intensive. So Ice Golem here into the Dungeon Diver 3. So Dungeon Diver 3 going to be a full 5,000 energy into Ice Golem plus the training. What I would recommend is probably complete Ice Golem without any food. Just finish off the tournament with just basic farming and then focus full campaign on the training event to finish off Dungeon Diver 3. That might be the way to do it, just to be most energy efficient. If you want to be a little bit a mixed bag, you could go Ice Golem solo farming, like I said, and that might be okay as well. Lastly, we're going to look at this summon rush event. So, like I said in the beginning of the video, we only can skip 10 fragments from this entire fusion calendar. So we can't avoid both summon events. So if you look at the champion chase, it's 15. And if you look at the summon rush, it's also 15. So we can't avoid either of these unless we win a tournament, which is quite difficult because it's going to be training tournament or champion chase tournament. You can't bank on winning either of those. So we're going to have to complete both of these summon events. Currently, no announced summoning event or anything like that for the that weekend, so we don't know anything that's going to line up with this summon rush. But this is the time where you're probably going to have to save your sacreds for. If you've been saving up to this point, hopefully you can save between 4 and 8 sacreds. We don't know exactly what the thresholds would be. From 15, it might be 5 and 10. It might be a single 15. In the past, it's usually broken up in 2 pieces. So it's possible that the champion chase or the summon rush has 2 parts, right? It could be 5 and 10. So it might allow you to skip the big portion, maybe the 10 from the summon rush or the 10 from the champion chase. We don't know yet. We don't know the full breakdown of the champion chase, but that is what I would be looking out for. If there is a big 10 fragment portion for summon rush, this might be the portion that is skippable. Okay, so if there is a 5 and a 10, go for the 5 and then we can skip the 10. That'll be very, very helpful. But of course, that means you have to complete every other event available right now. And there is some events that might be worth skipping if you had the shards or if it was a really good event for this late summon rush and diffusion. For example, during this Dungeon Divers here, I'm going to switch up my color here, pen color here. So during this Dungeon Diver here, this is a big energy spend, right? This is where your inbox energy, your gems are going to happen. You might want to, you might consider skipping this one, or you might consider skipping this Dungeon Diver, which is going to be basically full Ice Golem. You might want to consider skipping those. They're big energy sinks, but it just depends on what resources you're sitting on your account. So if you have obviously lots of shards, then the summon rush won't be an issue. Then you can complete the full summon rush, full champion chase, and then have some flexibility with saving gems or energy, or even silver. For example, you could skip the artifact enhancement events. But yeah, like I said, there is 10 skippable fragments, and I believe it's likely that the summon rush will be broken up into 2 parts. Same thing with the champion chase, giving us some flexibility on what we want to skip or how we want to use the 10 fragment skips during the schedule. This champion training event also looks a little bit interesting because it's quite long. It's quite long, and it doesn't really line up too well with how the Dungeon Divers and the single Ice Golem is. So that might also be something that you might want to consider skipping as well. But that only occurs or happens when you have enough shards to complete all the summon events. So like I said, there is some flexibility in this schedule. Just depends on the resources you have. So let's check out some of the old or most recent fragment fusion, and we'll see what the breakdowns are for the champion chase portion or the summon rush portion. So just going off of the most recent fragment fusion, which was Ancora, the summon rush cost 3150, which is 6 sacred shards worth for the full 15 fragments. So the first 5 fragments came at 2250, so 4 sacreds, and the full 15 came at 3150, which is about 6 sacreds. So that's kind of what you should be expecting from this summon rush portion. So up to 6 sacreds. If you don't want to fully complete the extra 10, so do just the first 5, it's going to cost you about 4 sacreds. So minimum 4 sacreds for the summon rush here. and then you can skip the additional 2 sacreds if you so choose. It might actually almost be worth it to pull 2 sacred shards so that you can skip, like, for example, 2 dungeon diver events. That might actually be worth it, to be honest. But obviously that's dependent if you have, 2 extra sacred shards. So if you're running really, really tight, then obviously 4 should be the minimum, most likely, for the summon rush. But yeah, it does offer you some flexibility if you have the shards here. And I think for an extra 2 sacred shards to allow you to skip 2 dungeon diver events, that's a big energy savings there if you want to do that, or even full skip the training event, which is a little bit awkward in this spot here. So that's a really nice option to have. Another thing we noticed with this schedule is that there's no hero's path associated with it, which is a little bit of a surprise and a little bit out of formula for Plarium. Plarium's been doing most of their fusions with hero's path within them for the past couple months. So for this fusion to not include one, it makes it a little bit less tricky, and it just looks more like a standard fusion. But you never know what Plarium's going to be sticking into their schedule. But so far, it doesn't look like there's anything too tricky going on with the schedule. It looks relatively straightforward. Too bad it wasn't 115 total fragments, which allows you to fully skip 1 summon event. So a little bit of a downside there, but having 10 available is still okay. It gives us the option to skip the big portion of the summon rush, for example, which only saves like 2 sacreds, but it's still okay. Rather extra 10 than having 0, I guess. And lastly, we'll take a quick look at the Plarium Play calendar here to see if there's any special events coming up or any clues during the current events that we just went over. So we can kind of see that there's not really any kind of special rewards for any of these events. They look pretty standard. Here's a champion chase breakdown. So it looks like there's going to be a mythical skill tome, which means that it might be a bigger version of the champion chase. Not our standard 5,500 point champion chase, so it might be a much higher one. But there's nothing too crazy or unique that stands out here. So you can see like dungeon divers here. You see the other dungeon divers, they're all the same. They all have similar rewards, so nothing too crazy. Here's the champion training. Maybe they put something in the champion training to make it more juicy, but that's what I was thinking. But there's no additional reward here or anything special. Summon Rush. This one also looks like a pretty deep one. Usually they are kind of deep, but the rewards don't look any special or any different. At least from what we see on the calendar currently, there is nothing special or tricky or anything that's popping up. Like there's no hero's path, there's no special events popping up. So a little bit of a boring, straightforward fusion, I think. Personally, I think it's a good fusion. So if you guys are on the fence about going for her, I probably suggest you probably go for her. Eventually, even if you're not into Hydra or you're not super focused on it right now, having this champion makes it a lot easier for team building for Hydra. And she's definitely going to help you for like different tag team setups. If you don't have Arbiter, or if you do have Arbiter, she's a good team B option. For Hydra, she's going to be a good option for any team. So you need 3 Hydra teams, so it's going to be good there. Is she skippable? Yes, of course she is skippable. She's not like game breaking or anything like that, but like I said, she will make life a little bit easier for you for Hydra. But yeah, overall I think she's a good champion, but definitely skippable. But if you can do it, I would suggest you guys do it. Overall, I think this schedule looks very straightforward, almost kind of easy-ish, nothing too tricky, no hero's path or anything like that. I do want to say to probably be cautious about spending too many shards. If possible, conserve your shards. We know that Plarium does events right after fusions and during fusions, so there might be a juicy, for example, during the CVC, we might see like a juicy progressive event. It might be tempting to spend shards here, but I'd probably recommend saving shards, having a look at the Summon Rush event, and saving as many shards as you can exiting the fusion, and then hopefully the event following the fusion would be pretty nice. It might be for a champion. People are expecting or suggesting that it will be Wallmaster. So if you guys don't know who Wallmaster is, he is the new max HP damage dealer. I'm going to link my video, my test server footage in the description below, but he's basically a high elf Othrion, sorry. The Wallmaster here, he does the multi-hit max HP, enemy max HP hit. After my playtesting, obviously he's very solid because he brings block buffs for Hydra and stuff. But he doesn't hit as hard. He doesn't hit as hard on a single hit, but he might be able to get extra turns and now increase his overall damage. But his per hit multiplier seems not that impressive. But he's still a very good champion, and people are expecting or suggesting that he might be the next guarantee champion. So definitely consider that when you want to consider spending shards. So you might be missing out on Orion there. So, but anyways, guys, that's gonna be it for the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it and learned a little bit about the upcoming schedule. Yeah, let me know in the comments below what you guys are planning to do. If you guys see something cool or you guys have a cool tip or strategy, let me know in the comments below. But anyways, that's going to be it. Appreciate you guys for watching till the end, and I'll see you guys in the next one.